Do you have a permanent retainer? Or are you thinking about getting a permanent retainer? Here are some important things you need to know. Time for some PFOing, so you know where you're going. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Ryan Packard at Packard Family Orthodontics. Today's episode is about the permanent retainer. Orthodontists also call it the glued or bonded retainer. And some important things that you should know if you have a bonded retainer and or are thinking about getting one. But before we jump into that, remember, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions about something you've seen before or something I've talked about in this video, feel free to leave a comment and or question, and I can try to respond or maybe make a future video. I, of course, can't give you all of the information, and so this becomes kind of a general, hey, these are some good things to know. Most importantly, of course, the best place for you to get information about your teeth, your smile, is at your local orthodontist. And please consider subscribing to the channel so that I can open your eyes to the wonderful world of straight teeth and beautiful bites. Okay, so first, the permanent retainer. People call it the permanent retainer because it gets glued in behind your teeth or up behind your top teeth, and it stays there, meaning that it's not one that you can take it in and out. So there are different kinds of retainers. There's the glued in kind or the fixed kind. That's what we call it. It's like fixed in position. And then we have the removable kind. Removable kind, you've probably seen this a lot, but we're not really talking about them. It's the clear kind, the vacuum formed retainer. Some people call them Essex or like an Invisalign like retainer. You can take it in and out. Then you have the traditional kind of retainer with the metal wire that's in front. A lot of the older individuals have seen these or enjoyed these. They're very effective. But both of these you can take in and out of your mouth. The glued in kind, or what people call the permanent retainer, orthodontists call fixed, bonded, or glued in, that's something that stays in place. It doesn't mean that it is indestructible though. Glued, or what people call permanent retainers, can break and they can fall out and have issues. So just keep that in mind. Here's an example of a removable clear retainer. Kind of looks like this. You can see that it fits all the teeth. You can slap it in. Excellent. Here's that old school retainer. We call it the Holly retainer. It's one of the traditional kinds. The Holly retainer, metal wire, acrylic on the inside, and it goes right in the top of your mouth. Or you can even do one on the bottom. But we're not gonna talk about all of these different kinds of retainers today. We're focusing on the glued in retainer. So I've got some pictures here. But different offices use different kinds of glued in or bonded retainers. There's one kind, this is the bottom teeth. The arch that most commonly people put a glued in retainer or bonded retainer in is on the bottom, okay? Those bottom teeth tend to move faster than the top teeth without a retainer, okay? Without a retainer, the bottom teeth are gonna move faster than the top teeth. So that's one of the reasons why people consider putting a glued in or bonded retainer on the bottom, is because they wanna hold those teeth a little more rigidly. Okay, so there's two kinds of glued in retainers. One kind that gets glued on to the canine here, and the other piece gets glued onto the canine here, and then there's a bar that goes all the way through the back. Here's a picture. This can be great for cleaning, and it can also hold the width of the canine from canine to canine apart. The downside of this one can be that it's not necessarily, not all the time, it's not always glued to each tooth, which means that those front four teeth could still move or twist a little bit. I've seen that retainer, and it seems like there's research that suggests that those retainers last longer. But again, so maybe they don't break as often. That doesn't mean they won't break at all, but compared to the other type of retainer that's glued from the canine to canine, but it's also glued on each tooth, another small skinny wire, okay? That retainer, seems like that one tends to break a little more often. But the benefit of that one is that it holds on to each tooth, trying to keep those teeth more straight. Okay, so different orthodontists will argue different benefits or risks of the different glued in retainers. Here are 3 important points about the glued retainer that you should know if you're considering getting one or already have one. I recently saw a patient who came into the office who had wonderful orthodontic work. Teeth were straight, beautiful. She had a glued-in retainer that was glued on each tooth from canine to canine. It's only the front 6 teeth. Well, point number 1, just because you have a glued retainer, it doesn't mean that your teeth can't move at all, especially the last tooth on the wire or part of the retainer. And that's what happened with this patient. She had the glued retainer. You'll see a picture from here to here, canine to canine on the inside of her teeth, but that last tooth started to move out of alignment. It started to come forward, all right? And so this patient, they noticed that there was some changes happening. And that is one risk of just a glued retainer. Just because you get it in, it doesn't mean that those front 6 teeth are gonna stay exactly the same way, especially those very end teeth. Remember, they don't have a glue piece that goes behind them like the front 4 teeth. The front 4 teeth have the canines as the end teeth, so they can stay better in alignment. But those last teeth, there's nothing behind them that's holding them in the same place. So remember that, point number 1, just because it's a glued-in retainer doesn't mean that your teeth can't move at all, especially those end teeth. Second important point, glued retainers are good at holding the front teeth straight, but that doesn't mean that they will keep the back teeth where they are. Naturally, what happens with people over time, they smile really big, they finish their braces like, oh my gosh, our teeth are so straight and they're so wide and such a beautiful smile. And they decide to go with glued-in retainers that only hold the front 6 teeth, essentially. Sometimes if they do one on the top, it only holds the front 4 teeth. So there's nothing keeping your smile wide. In theory, if you're biting really well, maybe it can help hold, but what we generally see for patients who don't have anything that holds the back teeth out with a retainer like this or a retainer like this, they are at a higher risk for the natural narrowing of the smile over time because they just have the retainer in the front. That was point number 2. Point number 3, glued retainers or the permanent bonded retainer, okay, remember, goes in behind the teeth. These are also really good for keeping spaces closed. So if you had a lot of space to begin with before you got braces or Invisalign and you closed all the spaces up, the glued retainer helps keeps all those spaces closed, right? If it's glued onto each tooth, it tries to keep them all closed. But again, what it doesn't do is prevent spaces from opening up behind those teeth. So it's important that as you consider the glued retainer, one of the reasons people like them is because they don't have to maybe worry about them as much and it just stays in all the time. But the reality is having an extra retainer that goes over the top of those glued-in retainers or something like this can help prevent other movements. There's no perfect solution. So if you have a glued-in retainer and it's been in there for years and years and years and years and years and you don't have any problems, maybe don't do anything about it. Or you could consider that, hey, this glued retainer is doing a great job in the front, but it may or may not help prevent movements or spaces that occur in the back. All right, so these are not all the things that you need to know about glued or bonded retainers. I just wanted to bring it up because of the patient I saw. That particular patient was sad that there had been some movement even though a glued retainer was in place. As a reminder, some important things to consider. 1, glued or the fixed bonded retainers that go on the back of the teeth, they really only hold the front teeth straight in your mouth. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. And of course, remember, consider subscribing to the channel so that I can open your eyes to the wonders of straight teeth and beautiful bites. That's all I've got. Just a little PFOing so you know where you're going. Packard out.